All right, this video is going to take you through activity 1.3.3, and we are, as has been the case with the videos recently, we are going to do this in Fusion and then in Onshape. And so this is probably going to be a very long video. If you are here just for Onshape, go ahead and fast forward to where you start to see me doing the activity in Onshape. And I am working off of some screenshots from the PowerPoint that I have put on my phone. So we shall see how this goes. So in a Fusion, we're going to open up a new sketch, and I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to create it on my XY plane as usual. And the first step says place a line along the x-axis and allow for a horizontal constraint. So I'm going to click my line tool over here. And then I want to show you what is meant by allow for a horizontal constraint. So I'm going to place this near to my x-axis. And as I'm drawing it, see that light blue symbol that is appearing at the bottom of the line there. Ooh, hang on. I need to actually change the document settings to millimeters. Okay, and then I'm going to click back here. Now, this is actually a really great teachable moment. What a lot of my students do is they actually start a new sketch and they try to continue that line. You want all of this to be in one sketch. So if, like me, you like, wait a minute, I forgot to do the millimeter thing. You want the rest of your sketch to be a part of this sketch. So what you want to do is you don't want to start a new sketch and then attach them together, because then you have sketch elements in separate sketches, which will mess up everything. So right click on the icon and then click edit sketch, and it's going to keep me in that same sketch. And I'm just going to extend that line out. Now, again, we're looking at that symbol right there. This is a horizontal constraint, and Fusion has automatically applied that horizontal constraint. So because I started to draw the line looking horizontal, Fusion automatically assumed like, hey, she wants this to be horizontal. I'm going to move my line up a little bit. That she wants it to be horizontal, and it constrained it that way. And and so it's going to try to read your mind, and a lot of times it reads it right, sometimes it reads it wrong. All right, make line 2 coincident with line 1. So this is line 1 right here. Make sure when you highlight it that the whole thing highlights it. I'm going to go open up my line tool again. Coincident, so see how that box popped up? That means that Fusion is going to automatically apply a coincident constraint. It's very intuitive. It just means that lines 1 and 2 are going to share an endpoint. So most of us would do that. And perpendicular to it. Whoops. I did not want to do that. Okay. Now, notice that little perpendicularly symbol that just appeared right there. That means that because I'm drawing now, if I tilt it out here, Fusion's like, okay, that's nice. That's nice. The moment that I make it look perpendicular, Fusion assumes that I want it to be perpendicular, and it will apply an automatic constraint to it. And so it's going to constrain those lines to be perpendicular, which means I can't go back and change that unless I change the constraints. Okay. Make line 3 perpendicular to line 2 and heading to the right. So notice that perpendicular constraint. And I can't really, you guys can't see me point at my computer screen. But you'll notice that like the little right angle symbol, once I clicked, it turned into a little perpendicular symbol there. Okay. And heading to the right, there we go. Make line 4 diagonal and headed upward to the right. Okay. And so we just want to diagonal headed upward to the right. Make line 5 headed upwards and have a perpendicular constraint with line 3. So if you take a look at that right in the middle of my line there, there's this perpendicular symbol, and then to figure out what it's perpendicular to, you have to go hunt around your diagram and find the other perpendicular symbol, which you can see back on line 3. So it's automatically constraining line 5 to perpendicular to line 3, and then make the 6th line heading right, but intentionally avoid having Fusion apply the horizontal constraint. So oh, wait, shoot. There we go. Okay, so notice if I do this, it's going to make it perpendicular, and because it's perpendicular to a vertical line, it'll make it perpendicular, it'll make it horizontal. I'm going to intentionally just make that go up at an angle. All right. Complete the sketch as follows. Make line 7 heading down and parallel to line 3. So notice we have a little parallel symbol pop up. Let me clear that. And in order to figure out, well, what is this parallel to? You got to go find the other parallel constraint over there. Make line 8 perpendicular to line 4. I don't know, am I going to be able to do that? Basically, nope, it's perpendicular to line 6. I want it perpendicular to line 4. I am not getting that to happen. It's just not seeing it. Line 4 is the other diagonal line, and it's just not registering. Yeah, like I want it to do something like that, and it's not doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'll apply that one on my own. I just got to remember to do that. Make line 9 parallel to line 3, but not on the same level. That looks good. It's not showing parallel to line 3, but you just got to remember, like, if they're perpendicular to the same things, they're parallel. It's a little geometry for you. And then make line 10 just connect it back to line 1, and it should turn blue. Now, the constraint that's missing is this line right here is supposed to be perpendicular to this line here, and I couldn't get it to automatically do it. So what I'm going to do is automatically apply that constraint. I'm going to come up here to the constraints panel. I'm going to click perpendicular, and I'm going to click this line, and then you'll notice that it just shifted the figure to make those perpendicular. Now, before I leave this, I need to escape out of that so that nothing is selected. That I can move things around. So I can move, like, click on different dots. I can click on this and move this line up and down. I can drag this in, drag it out. And what that means is that my figure is not fully constrained. Now, I have some relationships, like, so you'll notice, like, if I drag this out, I can't change the angle of this, like, because those are constrained to be right angles. So I can't change everything, but I can change some of the things. And what we want to do is get to where our sketch is what's called fully constrained. So there is nothing that we can mess around with. So in general, Fusion constrains the second object that you select to the first one that you select. And just keep that in mind. So first thing we need to do is we need to make lines 2 and lines 10 parallel to each other. So this is line 2 over here, and this is line 10. So in my constraints panel, I am going to choose parallel. And now this one, it doesn't matter which order you select them in because this is locked in. So I click line 2, line 10, and notice that it flipped line 10 to make it parallel to line 2. Make line 6 parallel to the x-axis. So here's line 6. And this was along the x-axis. This is a horizontal constraint, so I'll apply that there. Make lines 5 and 7 the same length. So this is line 5 and this is line 7. So to do that, I need what's called an equal constraint. So as you're doing this, you're actually getting like a feel for like what all these different constraints are, what they do, how they change the shape of the graph and so forth, or the sketch. So we're going to take line 5 and line 7. And notice that it took line 7 and made line 7 the same as line 5. If I go backwards on that and I do line 7 and then line 5, it adjusts them the other way. You probably didn't even notice that. That was pretty hard to see. Makes lines 3 and 9 align with each other. So this is line 3 and this is line 9. They are both horizontal, okay, but they're not lined up with each other. So I can move line 3 and I can move line 9. I said that backwards. So the constraint that you want for that is what's called a collinear constraint. So collinear is not on my menu up here. For some of you, it might be on your menu, but for me, it's not. So I'm going to come down here. And collinear means on the same line. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be on top of each other. It just means they're going to line up. So I'm going to go ahead and click line 3 and line 9. And you'll notice that it dropped line 9 down to line 3. Now, just for reference, if I had clicked line 9 first, oh, no, in that case, line 3 must be locked in there. I'm going to mess with it. Now, if I click them and drag them, they move up and down together because they are now constrained to be on the same line. All right, next thing. Now, the next thing is we're going to get into the construction lines. So in Fusion, right over here on the right-hand side, you'll see when I hover over that we have construction. Okay, and that just changes the line type, and that's going to allow us to put some lines, circles, whatever we want to put on here to make them useful for our sketching, but they won't actually be part of the sketch. So we are going to, I feel like I missed a step. Draw a circle, align the circle with the midpoint, make the circle tangent to the construction line. I am missing a slide. Oh, crud. Hang on. Okay, we're back in business. I was missing a slide. We were supposed to actually, okay, let's see. Here we go. All right, so what are we doing with our construction thing? We are drawing a construction line connecting the midpoints of line 1 and line 6. So I'm going to go ahead, click the line tool, and then I'm going to click this construction icon over here. And I would like to connect the midpoint of line 1 and line 6. Now notice when I'm hovering over line 6 there, when I see that little triangle up here, that means I am on the midpoint, and it means that it's going to constrain my line to the midpoint. And I should see something similar down here, right about there. Okay, so I'm going to click here, and then there we go. And you'll notice a couple of constraints that appeared on that. You see that the midpoint, that little triangle thing, appeared. I am at the canal with Cheryl. I will be home after 6. That is a message from my mom. Basically, she's telling me not to call her until after 6. All right, so it says here, if your construction line isn't vertical, add a vertical constraint to it. So this is definitely not vertical. So we're going to click this. And remember, this constraint defaults to, is it closer to vertical or closer to horizontal? It's closer to vertical. So went ahead and it put a vertical constraint on, and then you can see that appeared right there. Now it says fix the midpoint of a line 1 to the origin. And I have a note that says that I had trouble with this. So I'm going to find the midpoint, and then I'm going to find the origin, and it did not fix it because I didn't want that. Shoot. Turn that off. I have a feeling I need to unfix that. Let's unfix it. There we go. Okay. So can I move it around? There we go. Okay, so I can move it around. What I want to do, I don't want to fix it there. So that was me flubbing it, and we are 14 minutes into the video, so I'm not going to go back and fix it. I don't want, it's actually poorly phrased, and I think I got this straight from PLTW when it says fix, because it makes it sound like you want to use fixed constraint, but you don't. What you want to use is coincident, so it constrains the position of 2 points. So I want the position of that midpoint to be with that, and it's saying it's over constrained, which means that it means there's a constraint on there. I don't know what the constraint could be though, because, all right, we'll try again. Sketch geometry is over constrained. That's not helpful. All right, I think, what's the note here? I struggled with this in the video and I had to pause it. You may need to delete one of your existing constraints in order to make this work. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, is I'm going to pause the video and figure out what I have over constrained here, that it's not letting me move this. Like, it feels like it should let me, like there's no reason why that point can't be moved down. But I'm going to pause the video and figure it out. All right, so here's what it was. It was just the order I was clicking them in. That didn't take me long at all. So I want coincident. I want the midpoint to be constrained to the origin. As long as I clicked the midpoint, well, now it did it fine in that order. So I did not change anything. I did not delete anything. I did not change anything. I just kept clicking it and then it worked. I wish I had a better answer for you guys, but I don't. So, and now I've paused long enough that I lost my doohickey thingy. All right, so what is the next step? We need to draw a construction line from the midpoint of line 2 extending into the figure. And I have a little note here in the PowerPoint that says, be sure to turn off the construction feature when you're finished. I always forget to do this. So what I'm saying there is I have this construction feature that's highlighted, and what I often forget to do is I forget to turn it off. So here's line 2. I'm going to hover down until I see that little triangle. That means I'm at the midpoint, and I'm going to draw my construction line somewhere into the figure. It doesn't specify how far. And then my little reminder to myself is go ahead and select that again so that you deselect it. Because what I just end up doing is, like, I'll go on to the next thing and I'll end up with a construction circle. And it's super easy to change it. Like, if I did not want this to be construction, I can just select it and then select that, and you'll notice it's no longer a construction line. So it's not like it's hard to fix. It's just annoying. All right, so now I can go back to my tangent and symmetry constraints. This is like the spot where I had the missing slide. So draw a circle in the lower left of the figure. That's all it says, is draw a circle in the lower left of the figure. There we go. Align the center of the circle with the point at the juncture of lines 3 and 4. So in other words, I want this point at the center of the circle to be lined up with this point. So we're going to use a vertical constraint, and we're going to take the center of the circle and align it up. And okay, so this is that annoying little thing. I'm going to click my undo button. That Fusion Onshape won't do this. Fusion just defaults to whatever's closer. So those 2 points are closer to being horizontally constrained than they are to being vertically constrained. So what I'm going to do is grab the center, and I'm just going to shimmy my circle over here to where it's closer to where I want it to be. And I think I accidentally... Okay, when I did that, it accidentally constrained it. Notice it did that like it's constraining it to the line. I don't want to do that either. So we'll go ahead and put it right there. Now when I click the constraint, it defaults to vertical because it's closer to being vertical than it is horizontal. So that's how you fix that if that happens. Make the circle tangent to the construction line. So we're going to go find our tangent, and we're going to pick the circle and the line, and it made it tangent to the construction line. And notice that, like, it shifted some other things here that maybe I'm not super thrilled that they shifted, but they did what they did. And then it says adjust the size of the circle so that it fits inside the object. So I'm going to go ahead and basically make it smaller so that it fits inside the object. Now this is where I did not like how the directions in PLTW tell you to do this. And so we'll see how it goes, but it says draw another circle in a similar location on the other side. Okay. And then constrain the second circle to be symmetric to the first using the construction lines. So I'm going to go down to symmetry, and I would like this to be symmetric to that over that line. And that actually worked okay. I think it worked okay. So if I grab that and yep, okay. No, that worked. So yeah, that's got the symmetry constraint on it. I have a note in the PowerPoint that in a previous year, I did not like that way of putting that circle on there. And I did it this way. I used the mirror tool and I said, okay, I would like this to be mirrored over the construction line. And that got me like kind of where I wanted to go. We don't have the full symmetry of the actual thing yet, but I'm going to go ahead and go back and do it the way they wanted me to do it. So we put that in a similar place, and then we're going to put the symmetry constraint. We would like this to be symmetric to this. Select the symmetry line. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to add the dimensional constraints to this. Now, as I mentioned in the video, sometimes the order that you dimension these things is going to make a huge difference. And so there is a chance they applied a constraint in here. Oh, maybe not. I want that circle to be a little bit small. There we go. If you change one of these measurements, it'll turn like the whole thing inside out on you, and it is super wonky. So just heads up. If that happens, delete your dimension, go back, click undo, and then try to click undo. So we want that is not what I wanted. All right, dimensions. So this is supposed to be 20 millimeters. So that did not mess with it too much. We want this to be 15. Okay, that's still okay. This down here is supposed to be 15 also. I don't really want it there. That's like a bad spot to put it, but the total distance from top to bottom, so from the top to the bottom, is supposed to be 45. And that's kind of more what I mean by like, what is that? But we're just going to keep moving on. I think the entire bottom is supposed to be 100. Yeah, awesome. And then this is supposed to be 5. Okay. That's clearly not what we wanted. I'm going to see what I can do. I think there's a note in here. It says in the video, I had to add another constraint. And I think the other constraint that we need to add is we need these two sides to be equal. And there we go. And so that was not in the directions, but that's something that like, obviously I ended up with something really distorted. Okay, now that completes the drawing in Fusion. Now there are some things that you need to do, and there's one change you're going to need to make before you take your screenshot and submit it, but I don't want anybody submitting mine, so I'm not going to make that change. make sure, I think what you need to do is you need to ultimately change the overall height over here to 100, but I also want you to do the activity where you're kind of playing around with this a little bit first. There we go, over there. All right, now, for those of you that are doing this in Fusion, your 24 minutes are up and you are free to do whatever else you need. We're gonna go over into Onshape and, okay, and do this all over again. I'm getting hungry. Okay. So we are going to start a new sketch. So I'm going to come over here. I am in my demonstration files, so you can see all the stuff I've demonstrated, but here we go. This is going to be the constraints demo. And here we go. Now, bear in mind that I will, oh, wait a minute. Workspace units, let's change that to millimeters. And we're going to start the sketch. We'll do it on the front panel, make it normal, and then make my other things. Actually, I am doing this on the front. Yeah, okay, I think I want that, and that's for that horizontal, well, no. All right, so here we go. And bear in mind, I am so much newer at Onshape, so I'm really sorry if this is super, super rough. So we are going to start by placing a line along the x-axis and allow for a horizontal constraint. So in Onshape, see where there's a little horizontally dashed thing. Okay, it's not there, it's there, it's not there. Okay, I'll do that a couple more times so you can see it. Not there, there, not there. That little dashed line is the automatic constraint. So we're dealing with these automatic constraints that these programs will put on there. Okay, so there's the first one, and if when I hover over it, you can see the horizontal constraint. Now over here, there's like a little button that says show constraints. I'm going to go ahead and click that so you can not see the constraints or you can see the constraints. Make line 2 coincident, okay, and this is that, like, when it highlights it, coincident just means these two lines are going to share the same endpoint. You can see a little icon appear there, and it says make it perpendicular to line 1. So not perpendicular, not perpendicular, perpendicular. It snaps it in and it shows you that little icon. Like, we are going to assume that since you're drawing that to look like a right angle, that you want it to be at a right angle. Next one, make line 3 perpendicular to line 2. And heading to the right, you can see that if it's constrained to be horizontal, then you can use your geometry knowledge to know that that has to be perpendicular to line 2. Yeah, that has to be perpendicular because two lines perpendicular to the same line or horizontal, they're parallel. Okay. All right, make line 4 diagonal and moving upward to the right. Make line 5 heading upward, and what am I doing? And with a perpendicular constraint to line 3, which means it has to be vertical. So we'll go with that vertical constraint there. Make a line 6 heading right, but intentionally avoid the horizontal constraint. Okay, so it's going to want to make that horizontal. We're going to make it go up at an angle to avoid that constraint. And sometimes you need to do that. Like when you're designing stuff, like you have to intentionally make something a little bit wonky to avoid having your CAD system apply those automatic constraints to it. Okay, so next up, oh, I gotta go to another screen. Complete the sketch as follows. Make line 7 heading down and parallel to line 5. If they are both vertical, then you know they will be parallel. Make line 8 perpendicular to line 4. This is what I was not able to do in the Fusion demo. So I had to apply the constraint afterwards. I'll do it here as well. Make line 9 parallel to line 3, but not on the same level with it. and then connect it to close it, and it should change the shape. Okay, now hopefully you've got your diagram there. Now the constraint I wasn't able to get, and I didn't get it in Fusion either, this line right here is supposed to be perpendicular to this one. Doesn't mean they have to meet or touch or anything, they just have to be perpendicular. And so in my constraints menu, which is over here on the right, I'm going to go find my perpendicular constraints, and I'm going to click those two lines, and you'll notice that like it shifted my figures so that those lines are now perpendicular. So, so automatic constraints. So what you really want to see when you're doing this first part is that the constraints that the CAD system will put on it, okay, that are automatic. It assumes that you know that it knows what you want to do, and but it doesn't do it without telling you, or at least most of the time it doesn't put these constraints on without without telling you that the constraint is going to be there. So you just have to be really attentive to what you're doing. The CAD systems can be sneaky. Okay, so now we're going to add a bunch of manual constraints. And I am not familiar with Onshape enough. I know in Fusion in general, it will take the second object and constrain it to the first one. So you're going to click two things. So if I want these two lines, this line and this line, to be aligned with each other, if I click this one and then this one, it'll take this one and bring it down. If I click this line first and then this one, it'll take this line and bring it up. A lot of times it doesn't matter, but it can matter, and it's not foolproof. So sometimes if something is already constrained in a particular way, it will have to constrain the first thing to look like the second thing. It's not a like a foolproof thing. It's just one of those things to keep in mind. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make line 2, which is this line over here on the left, parallel to line 10. So in my drop down menu, I'm going to find the parallel constraint. This one is already constrained to be vertical, so it's going to have to take line 10 and make line 10 vertical also, because you can't mess with line 2. It's already constrained. Make line 6 parallel to the x-axis. So this line down here, which we know is parallel to the x-axis, this line is horizontal. So when I click these two and say make them parallel, it has to take line 6 and make it horizontal. If not, then it could do it different kinds of ways. Like it could take the bottom and make it tilted. Make lines 5 and 7 the same length. So this is line 5, this is line 7. So to make them the same length, what we want is an equal constraint. And I'll go ahead and click line 5, and then I'll click line 7. And what you should have noticed is that it took line 7 and made it the same length as line 5. Now, just to illustrate, if I click line 7 first and then line 5, that's got to be constrained another way too. It did that in Fusion as well. So it just means there's some other kind of constraint on there that I'm not aware of or thinking of at the moment. Now, what this does, in case you're wondering like what this does, what we're doing is we're constraining these things so that they have to move particular ways. And so now, like whenever I move this up and down, lines 5 and line 7 have to move together. And if I try to drag this out, it doesn't tilt the things anymore. So what we're doing is we're like essentially locking these things into place. The next one is line 3 and line 9. We want those to be aligned with each other. In other words, we want them to be collinear on the same line. It doesn't mean that they are going to touch or they're going to be on top of each other, just that they would be on that same linear plane there. So for this, there is no collinear constraint. I think we can use I think we can do it this way. That it says you can constrain certain lines or points to be horizontal with each other. So I'm going to see if that works. Nope. Okay. Let's do it with the points. I'm going to take this point and tell it needs to be horizontal with that point. That worked. Okay. So Fusion actually has a collinear constraint. Onshape does not have it. So now notice when I move line 3, line 9 moves along with it. If I move line 9, line 3 moves along with it. And so the way that I did that, if you need me to go back and just explain it again, I used a horizontal constraint because there is no collinear constraint apparently. And I took this point and clicked it, and this point and clicked it, and said, hey, these 2 points need to always line up together. So if I move this point up, this point has to move with it. Okay, so next is construction lines. So we're going to do some construction lines. The icon for construction lines and Onshape is right there. And we're going to click the line tool, and then we're going to activate the construction line. Construction lines are going to be dashed lines that are going to help us with our design, but they're not actually part of the design. So what we want is a construction line to connect the midpoint of line, oh, this is the slide that I had missing. I have to go find the other one. Okay, the midpoint of line 1 with the midpoint of line 6. So right here, if I hover over line 6, you'll notice that square pops up. That means it's a midpoint, and it's going to automatically constrain my construction line to the midpoint. And I'm going to click, and I'm going to draw it down. Notice it's a dashed line, and I'm going to kind of move around until I find the midpoint. There it is. Okay, and then as soon as that box highlights, I'm going to go ahead and click the line to place the line there. And so that line is constrained to the midpoint. Notice this little constraint symbol popped up. That is a midpoint constraint. Okay, and so Onshape automatically applied that. Now it says if your construction line isn't vertical, then you want to add the vertical constraint to it. Well, my construction line clearly is not vertical. So I'm going to pick vertical constraint. I'm going to click my construction line, and it's going to shift it and adjust the figure as needed to be vertical like that. Now we're going to fix the midpoint of this line here to the origin, which I don't know that I can see. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's there. Okay. So for that, this did some bizarro stuff in Fusion when I did it about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago. And it kept telling me I was over constrained. And so I paused the video and I paused the video and then didn't do anything different, and then it worked. So go figure that. So coincidence is going to take 2 or more sketch entities and have them share the same location. So I'm going to pick that because I want to take my midpoint here and constrain it down to the origin. So I'll click the midpoint, I'll click the origin, and what it did was it moved my whole design down onto the origin. Now you'll notice there that this line became black, okay? And what that means is that we're slowly getting our sketch fully constrained. All right, now next thing, draw a construction line from the midpoint of line 2 and extending into the figure. So I'm going to click line, I'm going to click construction, and I'm going to go find the midpoint of line 2. There it is, and draw that out into the figure. So there we go. And hit escape. Now, one thing I like about Onshape is that it deselects the construction option. So I have to, like in Fusion, I'm always forgetting to turn it off. And so I will forget to turn it off. Now, if it doesn't deselect, or you've got something that's construction geometry and you want it to be regular geometry, what you can do is select the geometry and then select that construction icon. And what you'll notice is it turned my construction line into a regular line. If you have something that's a regular line or circle or rectangle or any kind of geometry and you want it to be construction geometry instead, you can highlight it and then select that, and it'll basically toggle it on and off, which is a fun little word, like to toggle stuff. So I forget in Fusion all the time to turn off the construction option. Onshape will automatically turn it off for you. All right, so I'm gonna go back here. We are doing some tangent and symmetry constraints. So next step is draw a circle in the lower left of the figure. So, okay, here we go. And then it says align the center of the circle with the point at the juncture of lines 3 and 4, which is this point right here. Now, when I did this in Fusion, like again, about like 20 or so minutes ago, it errored on me because Fusion has one constraint for vertical and horizontal. It doesn't have two separate constraints. And so in Fusion, like Fusion will try to guess which of those two constraints you want based off of what it's close to. And I had drawn my circle like up here, and so it thought it wanted it horizontally constrained, and I had to go delete the constraint, move the circle, and so forth. That should not be an issue in Onshape. So what we want to do is take this point and align it with this point over here. That'll be a vertical constraint. I'll click the center of the circle and that point there, and notice it moved my circle, and then notice the constraint symbol appears there because I've got my constraints turned on. So we have that aligned. It says make the circle tangent to the construction line through the midpoint. So we want this circle to be tangent to this line. So we'll go into, where is it? Tangent constraint, there it is. And we'll take this circle and we'll take this line, and it makes the circle tangent. And then adjust the size of the circle so that it fits in the object. Not an issue, but it was in Fusion. So if you want to back up the video, you can see what happened there. My circle was too big and I had to basically grab the circle and make it smaller. All right, now draw a circle on the other side in a similar place. So I'm just gonna kind of come over here and we'll do that, okay? Whoops, only one circle, there we go. And then what we're gonna do is constrain the second circle to be symmetric to the first. And there's a big note in there. I don't like this way of doing it. I think I prefer doing a mirror, like drawing it with the mirror option as opposed to putting a constraint on it, but it doesn't behave exactly the same way. So, okay, so I'm gonna take my first circle and my second circle and the line that we want it to be symmetric over. And there you go. Now, just so you guys can see like the other way you can do that, if I click undo, is I can build it with the mirror tool, okay? And it says select the mirror line and then select the object you want to mirror, and that both of those end up looking exactly the same. So there's two ways you can do it, or you can draw a circle and then say, hey, make my circle over here symmetric to this one. So now if I like change the size of one, oh, that's kind of what I meant with like things messing up when you have like weird little constraints. I'm going to go back and do it the way the directions say to do it, just so that I'm being consistent. So we'll go ahead and put the circle over here. Oh, I don't know why I'm doing that. And then from the drop down, we'll take the two circles and constrain them to be symmetric to each other over that line. All right. And I think we'll probably have the same wonky behavior. Yep, we do. Woo. Okay. All right. So there we go. That's good. All right, now we're going to add the dimensional constraints. So by adding the dimensional constraints afterwards, you actually limit the number of dimensions you need to add. But there is a note that says, note that the order that you apply the dimensions in may make a huge difference. So if a dimension grossly distorts your figure, okay, so you put in a dimension and it like looks like it turns inside out, which you kind of just saw when I messed with the size of the circle there, delete that dimension, go and dimension something else first. And just go and dimension something else first. and see if that makes a difference. It does do some weird stuff. And I also had some issues with fully constraining the sketch, that there's something that wasn't applied. I had to go apply it in the Fusion video as well. So we'll click our dimensioning tool. And I guess we'll start up at the top here. This is supposed to be 20 millimeters. And that did not mess with it too much. What you're looking for is like if it looks like it turns inside out. This is supposed to be dimensioned at 15. That is what I mean. Okay, so that's, yeah, we're gonna not do that. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that, and we'll come back and try to get that one. It just means that like we might be better off. Oh, that's good. My blood sample arrived at the lab. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go see if we can change this one first. Let's see if we can make this one 15. Ah, no, I don't like that one either. All right. Let's do, we're gonna, I would like to delete that sketch entity. All right, let's try something else. This is supposed to be 100. I feel like this is gonna make it even worse. Nope, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so that one's not too bad. We also need to dimension these circles. These circles are supposed to be 5 millimeters, which just made them really tiny. All right, let's go back and see if we can do this one again at the 15. Let's see if, there we go. Okay. So that time, like, again, I'm trying to avoid the turning them inside out kind of dilemma that we have. This is supposed to be 15 also. I don't really like that. And then it is supposed to be 45 from the very top down to the very bottom. Oh dear. What? Hang on. What? Okay, that looks great. So this is obviously not fully constrained. And what I had to do with the Fusion one, and I've had to do it before, is if you notice, like, most of the sketch is in black except for these two pieces right here. And the circles aren't quite lined up right, but or aren't black yet. But what I had to do in order to get rid of the wonkiness is I had to apply an equal constraint to this segment, and then that fixed everything. And it did for Onshape as well. So it did something similar. This one was actually a little bit hairier than the Fusion one. So a couple things to notice. Make sure that you are showing your constraints. So that's that little checkbox right there. I need to see your dimensions and your constraints. You are going to do a couple of things with this before you submit it, though. There's where's that dimension? Let's go see if we can move that a little bit closer. There we go. Like that dimension was way out there. You're going to make a couple predictions about what happens if you change certain measurements in this, and then you are going to change the overall height here to 100. I'm not going to do that because I don't want you grabbing my sketch and submitting it. So, and then once you change that height, go ahead, write your name on it. But notice that everything turned black with that final little constraint on there, and that means that my sketch geometry is fully constrained at this point. So I know this video is really, really long, and it covered both of the CAD systems. So I'm really trying to work on that. You hope you didn't have to watch the whole thing unless you're really bored, and that this helped clarify what this activity was taking you through and the material from this lesson.